The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogalla, has called for a decisive action to prevent oil spills, reduce waste dumping, and ensure sustainable fisheries management. Ogalla made this call at the 5th Sea Power for African Symposium held in Cape Town, South Africa. He noted that the continent's maritime resources could generate over $405 billion by 2030, stressing the importance of sustainable management of the resources as key drivers to economic growth and food security. He highlighted the Africa Integrated Maritime Strategy as a critical framework for developing Africa's ocean economy in a secured maritime environment, urging African navies and coast guards to strengthen security cooperation to protect maritime borders, ensuring the region's economic prosperity. Ogalla emphasized on the environmental aspect of maritime security. He was accompanied by Rear Admiral Noel Madugu, the Naval Director of Administration, and Commodore Chikaji Aminu, the Defence Attaché to South Africa. The theme for the 5th Sea Power for African Symposium is Good Order at Sea in African Maritime.
The South African Navy, and indeed all the African navies and Nigerian Navy, share a symbiotic relationship that spans decades, built on a shared commitment for regional peace and security. It is an honor to make these closing remarks, particularly on today's topic, which is non-traditional maritime security challenges, threats in the African Maritime Domain, as it affects the theme of this year's Sea Power for Africa Symposium, which is Good Order at Sea in the African Maritime Domain. As African nations, we are collectively striving to secure our expansive maritime environments, which hold immense economic potential. The African Maritime Domain holds enormous resources, including hydrocarbons and fisheries, as well as also is a medium of transport. It also has the capacity to create jobs across the continent, which is key to Africa's exiting the poverty domain. Of course, the Africa Integrated Maritime Strategy aims to foster wealth creation through the development of an ocean economy within a secured maritime domain, and this vision aligns with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is projected to increase intra-African freight by 28% in the near future. A substantial portion of global trade passes through African waters, contributing over 20% of national revenues for some countries in Africa. However, our waters and the economic activities within them face a range of non-traditional threats, posing challenges to regional security. Maritime security threats often stem from the activities of non-state actors and organized criminal networks engaged in illegal exploitation of natural resources for financial gains. These groups exploit socio-economic vulnerabilities, including poverty and gaps in maritime law enforcement within our countries. As a result, African nations contend with a diverse challenges such as piracy, sea robbery, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, human trafficking, pollution, among others. The repercussions of these activities are far-reaching, manifesting in increased shipping costs, trade disruptions, and economic instability. In order to address these transnational maritime crimes, to maximize the economic potentials inherent in Africa's maritime domain, a collective approach involving navies and coast guards of the continent is required. It is therefore crucial that our security architecture is strengthened in this regard. The Sea Power for Africa Symposium is a vital platform for these efforts, as it offers a forum for the African heads of navies and relevant stakeholders to collaborate in addressing non-traditional maritime threats through enhanced regional cooperation, capacity building initiatives, and international partnerships. Through this collaborative framework, we can deepen our capabilities for information sharing, coordination of law enforcement activities, and optimize use of resources.
Now, from the Chief of the Nigerian Navy, Vice Admiral Ogalla. Admiral, one question, Admiral. How can African navies enhance cooperation to combat piracy and illegal fishing, sir?
Well, thank you very much. The issue of cooperation is key to addressing issues of maritime security. This is because of the inherent nature of the seas and oceans, which is the common heritage of mankind. Of course, we understand that the fishes and other marine resources in the maritime environment do not have boundaries.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, for us to be able to address them, we must have effective collective approach, which requires adequate cooperation. Of course, within the African continent, particularly within the Gulf of Guinea, where Nigeria is, we have already initiated those forms of cooperation through the Yaoundé architecture, Yaoundé Code of Conduct, whereby we've divided the entire Gulf of Guinea into zones. And the essence of these zones is to be able to provide a framework whereby we can collaborate both in terms of information sharing, information exchange, joint patrols and exercises, as well as ensuring that law enforcement, prosecution are carried out in a seamless manner within the entire zone. These are some of the things that we are already doing, and we continue to improve on the situation as the situation permits. Critical among this is, for instance, part of what we are doing today, the Sea for Africa Symposium, is aimed at improving that collaboration. This gives us opportunity to address some of the areas where we need to improve with respect to collaboration between our navies and coast guards in the African continent. And of course, that is the only way forward, because maritime crimes are fluid in nature. And if we have to allow every nation to do it alone, we will not achieve much. And we are seeing results already within the Gulf of Guinea. Of course, at one time, the Gulf of Guinea was one of the most piracy-prone areas. But based on this collaborative effort, we've been able to reduce that type of issues when it comes to piracy, when it comes to illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, to such an extent that we're having some relative peace in the Gulf of Guinea. And this is translating into the economies of our nation, and we are going to redouble our effort collectively to be able to